Hi, this is Brett Griffiths. I'm the director of the Reading and Writing Studios here at Macomb Community College. This web tutorial is designed to introduce college students to some of the strategies that effective email writers use when writing to their professors. So here's the problem. If you do a search on the internet for poorly written emails from students, you're going to get a ton of hits. Look here. I'll just go right here and write poorly written emails from students. It even comes up automatically under Google. And here's what we have. Maths professor blasts students, poorly written emails. College professor publicly shames student for poorly written emails. An example of an email message from a student. And here are the kinds of things that professors complain about. Dear student, my name is not Hay. This is written on Vitae by Stacy Patton at the Chronicle of Higher Education. In the email example that she describes, the student starts the email with, "Hey, I won't be in class today." And you'll even notice the student doesn't use a contraction here. So I'll watch that before class on Tuesday. There are some misspellings here. It's very casually written, and there's not a lot of regard for the instructor's time, the amount of time the instructor has put into preparing the class, or any of the ways that the absence of this student will impact the professor. In other words, there's not a lot of attention to mutual respect going back and forth. Okay, so what are some basic rules that you can follow so that your emails don't become the fodder for discussion on the internet about bad student emails? There are a couple of really basic rules. 1, write an informative subject. 2, address your professor directly and professionally. 3, begin and end with gratitude. 4, tell the reader quickly and directly what you need from him or her. 5, be succinct. Say what you need to say in the least amount of time. And if you cannot be succinct, use fonts or styles. In the rest of this tutorial, I'll show you some of the ways that you can do that. Okay, so let's say that you're writing to your professor. You go ahead, you open your email, you address it to the professor or professors that you want to write an email. One of the first things you want to think about is, what is your subject? You don't want to say, "Hey," and you don't want to leave it blank. Many people, in fact, won't click on an email that doesn't have a subject line. But you do want to give your reader a sense of how urgent this is. So if this is about a death in the family, you want to go ahead and be specific, death in the family. You don't have to give more details than that, but help your reader determine where your email falls in the 40 or 60 or 80 emails they get in a day, in order to determine in what order to read those emails and how quickly they'll need to respond. If you're writing the email to ask for an extension on your paper, go ahead and say that, rather than saying "my paper," which is pretty vague and might not tell the professor that you need them to read it right away. Say "extension on my paper." That way, your professor knows that they need to respond pretty quickly to let you know whether or not the deadline will be extended. You might also write "missing class on Thursday." Perhaps you have a doctor's appointment or childcare fell through that day. Make sure you tell your instructor exactly what it is you want to talk about. Most of us have become pretty accustomed to writing emails. In fact, most of the writing we do every day is by email or text or sometimes chatting. So it's important to remember, when writing to a professor or a boss, we actually want to use some of those strategies we associate with more formal kinds of writing, like letter writing. So you want to start your email with a salutation. "Dear Professor Smith." Once you've addressed the email, you want the first paragraph to start out with something positive and to let the professor know why you are writing. You might, for example, start with "thank you." Thank you is a great way to start an email. "Thank you for your helpful feedback on my homework today. I'm writing to ask for an extension on my paper that is due on Friday." Here's what this kind of a paragraph achieves for you. First of all, you start out by being grateful for some of the work that your professor has done. And second, you're telling the professor what it is you need to get from this email right away. That way your professor doesn't have to go through a lot of text to find out what it is that you need, and he or she can start thinking about the information that you provide next in terms of the evidence for why maybe you should get an extension. In the next paragraph, you're going to want to give those details. So in this paragraph, you may say, perhaps you have an ill relative, or you might actually build on what you said in the previous paragraph. I have a much better understanding of the course now after receiving your feedback. This new understanding makes me realize that I've begun the paper for your class in the wrong way. I am working with, and then the next thing you want to do is provide some of the evidence of things that you've done in order to improve the situation. So I am working with tutors in the reading and writing studio. Or you might write, I'm using the feedback that you gave me to correct the situation. Next, if you're asking for an extension, tell your professor when you think it will be done. I can have the completed essay to you on the Friday after it was due, or on Monday morning before your office hours, right? Or Monday morning at 7 a.m. Whatever you write, you want it to be a specific time so that you demonstrate to the instructor that you want to make good use of their time, respect the time and resources they have for reading and grading your assignment, and that you have a plan for following up. Finally, you want to close your email. Here again, I think it's not going too far to say thank you again. So here you could say, thank you in advance for considering my situation. I look forward to your response. Sincerely, and your name. But let's say you need their response in a particular amount of time and you don't know when your professor reads emails. You could say, I look forward to your response. And I will call you during your office hours on Thursday to follow up. That way you're giving the professor an opportunity to respond to your email before those office hours when such issues are usually discussed, and then you're offering to do the follow-up. You're not asking the professor, whom you're already asking for a favor, to do more for you. You're actually offering to do more to make it easier on them to do you a favor. Okay, so now let's talk about a situation where you have a much longer email to write. Again, you want to imagine that the person reading your email is likely reading 20 or 30 other emails in that same sitting. So you want to make it as easy on him or her as possible. We start with the same sort of email, extension on my paper, Dear Professor Smith, and then you tell Professor Smith what it is that you need. You begin with gratitude, thank you for your helpful feedback. Why are you writing? I'm writing to ask for an extension. And then second, I'm also writing to express my interest in a new study group. From here on out, you see that there's going to be quite a bit more text, so you can use some strategies to make it easier for Professor Smith to navigate the email and respond. One strategy you can use is you can come down and select two different topic areas. The first one could be asking for an extension. If you highlight that, and you go up to format text, and you can do the same thing in Google. It's a slightly different tab, but you can do that. I like heading number 2 because it's not quite as big. Your email will automatically create a new subheading for that part of the email. And then the second issue you wanted to talk with Professor Smith about is your interest in the study group on Saturdays. So here you can say interest in Saturday study group. And again, you would do something very similar in Google. You would go into the formatting button and click heading. I believe in Google it's called title or text. Here's what's nice about creating a new heading or a style. What you're then able to do, again, you can do this in Google as well, is you can say, I'm writing to ask for an extension on my paper, insert a hyperlink. Now, some hyperlinks are going to go to websites, but you can also do a hyperlink to the same document or email. You can do this in your Microsoft Word papers, you can do it in your emails. An extension on my paper. If they click on that, that's going to take them right to this section of the email, but you also had interest in the new study group that's offered on Saturdays. Interest in a Saturday study group. That way when your professor is reading the email, he or she can click right to the parts that you want. If the email is really long, and I want to strongly encourage that you don't write super long emails, but let's say you have to give someone a lot of information, maybe even a full report in the form of an email. One other trick you can do is you can use fonts and colors. You can say action requested, for example. Here again, you can use formatting text and put that in a heading 1, 2, or 3, or you could use a red color or something like that, just so that when it will stand out, so that when someone's reading it, they can quickly go from the beginning of the email through the major headings of the email to the response requested. You want to go back then and double check that you formatted everything so that it's the same and that you don't have any spelling errors, that you're speaking respectfully, and that you're following most of the standard conventions associated with professional and academic writing before sending it. This has been a web tutorial from the Reading and Writing Studios. We have locations at both campuses. You can find us at South Campus in the J Building, room 305, or on Center Campus in the C Building, room 105. If you'd like to make an appointment, please just follow the link at the bottom of this page. We look forward to meeting with you and working with you soon.